right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I am pumped today to have an old buddy of mine, a colleague, and was a fellow Purdue graduate, Zach Westerbeck, on the podcast. Zach, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Shane. It's great to be here, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Zach, why don't you start off? Maybe give everyone a little like elevator pitch, a little background into yourself, and then we can kind of dive in.
Sure. Yeah. So if I'm doing the 30-second elevator pitch and you tell me what variation you want after that.
Sure.
My name is Zach Westerbeck. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm a professional speaker. So I travel the country educating college students and corporations on the complexities of mental health in the modern world. I'm also a college success coach. So I work with college students on an individual basis. It's kind of like a hybrid between life coaching and mental health coaching. So a lot of my clients have underlying symptoms of anxiety and depression, but they're also struggling academically or socially. And so it's working with them to kind of shift their perspective, do some mindset tricks, get them in contact with like the right therapist, and just kind of get them on the right path, you know, with the goals that they're striving for. And then I'm the recent author of the book You're Not Alone.
Hell yeah.
Which I know we kind of messaged back and forth about, which is it's a mental health guide for 18 to 24-year-olds. Although I've been told from people all the way up to 50 who have read the book that it's a simple read, but it's applicable. And it's really just a step-by-step guide to overcome anxiety and depression. And it is everything. I've written this book over the last 2 years, and it's everything that I wish that I would have read or been educated on early in my life to prepare me for the journey that I was going to go on in 2016.
Got it. Oh, that's awesome, man. No,
Yeah.
that's really cool. I've been curious on how long it took you to write the book. So a little over 2 years.
It took me, and it's funny too, because and we were kind of joking about this too. Like prior to what I do now, I had founded a company called Great Minds with one of my best friends who now he lives in Southern California, but he lives in San Diego. I'm here in Orange County. But this book, like we write goals and we have these aspirations for ourselves, but sometimes life throws curveballs at you. And I couldn't have written this book without going through 2016, 2017, and still living with a diagnosable brain disorder. And so it took me 2 years to physically write it, but it took me, 2 years of going through it even before that to get to the point where I could write something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you need to go through the experiences before you had the knowledge to put it on paper, kind of thing.
Absolutely. And there's no amount of preparation for that, even formal schooling from the perspective, because we were both in the business school, to prepare me for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll dive into the book. I kind of wanted to back up too, because I think, and I was telling Zach before we started recording, I think his story is something that's really interesting. I think a lot of people who listen to this could resonate with just the different things you've done and tried and gotten you to where you are today.
Yeah.
So I wanted to back up. We obviously both, like I mentioned at the beginning, we're at Purdue, graduated in 2014. But something that's similar with me and Zach is we both left and went the corporate route right away. Like most people do after you pay for a nice degree. And Zach, you went to Cisco. So would you give everyone a little background? You were there for 6 years, I think, close to 6 years.
I was, man. I was at Cisco from 2014 until March of 2020. Yeah, and it was just an incredible experience for me. There are things that I would change in the corporate world, looking at it through a mental health lens.
Okay.
But coming up through the ranks, initially starting out in Cisco's training program, and I'll tie that all back in with the mental health side of things here in a bit when we get to that. But going through the training program, meeting so many young, ambitious, bright individuals, and then just starting to get on that path to building that foundation over, basically the start of what I like to call the real world.
Yeah, sure.
With so, and it's so funny because I've got like my friends before the real world and then all the friends that I've made after. And I'm like, you're one of my best real world friends.
That's funny.
Like I've
Oh,
met
yeah,
you as an adult, you know what I mean?
sure. Oh, that's
And
so true. I've
so
never thought about it that way. That's funny.
it is, man, because like as much as we hate to admit it, like especially as you get older, like I've noticed just there's this professionalism that you interact with people with, just like when you're first meeting somebody, that when we were in college, like there it was just more loose and we were just
Yeah.
younger and it was more innocent and the culture was conducive to um behaving a certain way. And in the adult world, like, you got to
Yeah.
button up, you got to
Right,
be
right.
you got to be a certain way to be respected. And so I always make that delineation. But yeah, Cisco was a good time. It's a very innovative company. It gave me the foundation for the professionalism and really some of the foundational business stuff that I still use to this day, just to learn how to interact with people, how to build a solid business strategy and plan, and how to just be good to your clients at the end of the
Got it.
day. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. So
yeah,
you spent 6 years there, and then one of the things we briefly chatted before we started recording was you started this Great Minds company with your good buddy. Would
yes.
you mind giving everyone? Because I think the reason I bring it up is me and Zach both have tried multiple things in our young careers, and I think it's interesting to talk about things that maybe you're not pursuing anymore, and how important just going through processes of trying shit, whether it's good, bad, or works, how that kind of elevates you to other things and coming up with new ideas, and even gets us both to where we are today. So I just think it's interesting, and it was really cool. I love following it. So it was, I enjoyed what you guys were putting out.
Oh man, it brings such a smile to my face. I am so glad that you asked this question because you're one of the few people that still knows about Great Minds. And I
I
like
always
the
remember
funny thing,
the light. You were the first people I knew that like coined the light bulb
the
emoji.
light, dude,
Oh
the
man, I always when
light.
I saw the post, I'm like, love it. Just like it was like a spark. You had to read
It
it.
was so good. And honestly, that was Christian's idea. My business partner at the time. He had an uncanny ability to kind of simplify things. I tended to be the one pushing us a lot,
Okay.
but he tended to be the one to simplify. So it was a good push and pull. And we still have a great relationship to this day. But dude, on the point of like trying different shit, like let me take this even a step like back for
Love it.
you.
Okay. Yeah. Love it.
Entrepreneurship is something, and just experimenting and kind of just having this desire to not, I don't want to say fall in line, because that would imply that I don't have respect for people that go into corporate America, or people who
Sure.
don't want to
Yeah.
be their own boss. Like
Right.
being your own boss is tough, man.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's
Right.
freaking
Sure.
hard and it's exhausting. But it's fun, and it's the right fit for the right type of person. So that's what I would say. So somebody who at their core just they need complete and total autonomy, and I happen to be one of those people. I joke
Yeah.
with my parents all the time, in a lot of ways, man, I'm unemployable. Like I'm like
I think that's a
i'm
common entrepreneurs, like if they explain themselves, I feel like I hear that all the time, that they think they're
I'm
just the worst
unemployable, man.
employee.
I am, and it's because like I don't respond well to like authoritarian management. I need to feel like you're a stakeholder and we're
Yeah.
sitting down versus you wagging a finger in my nose. Like I even as a kid, like when I was getting disciplined, I responded so much better to like, let's sit down and talk about this
Oh, I'm the same
versus,
way. Yeah.
right, versus you're just in trouble. So for anybody who's thinking about entrepreneurship, like just keep searching. And here's what I'll tell you. So like when I was like a child, 11 years old, my dad came into my bedroom one summer and he was like, this is the summer you learn how to make money. And he was like, I've got a lawnmower downstairs. I want you to go around the neighborhood and ask people to see if you can cut their lawns.
Oh,
He's like, you
wow.
can practice on our yard, get good at it, and then start doing it. So from 11 years old, I started to build this lawn mowing business where it was like, the first summer it was like 3 lawns.
Yeah.
But by the time I left in high school, I think I handed off 25, 30 lawns to my
Oh, did you
sister.
really? Oh,
Dude,
wow.
yeah. And I was making like money. And
Yeah,
I was,
that's
and
real probably money then. Yeah.
dude. And at the time, it was like, one of my buddies was like going to DQ making 550 an hour, and I was
Yeah.
like, at this point, this is beneath me. Like I could never show up to DQ and work for 550 after working for myself. But again, it's no knock. Like
Yeah, yeah,
you got
yeah.
to get in where you fit in. You got to take what you can get in the moment and then build, right? If
Well, and you
that's not
probably
your
also
end
you had
goal,
tangible experience of like the harder you work, the more lawns you got, the more money you got. It wasn't like you're fixed on the amount of hours you work. That's like a huge, I think, the like mental shift that you can see.
100%, man. And I quickly realized that, like, I think the American dream is like you show up and you work hard and you get your little paycheck. And for me, it was like, nah, my American dream is like I'm gonna see what my work ethic and my output will get me, because I need to have incremental, like I need to be in control of that.
Right. Right.
Um, so I realized that at a young age. When I was in college at Purdue, we tried to start this startup with, I'm going to shout out some
Love
names,
it. Love it.
Greg Burns,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Carter Kroc, if that name rings a bell, and then Stu Corcoran, who was the grade below us. And we tried to
Yes.
start this crowdfunding business called Tokos. And what it
I don't think I
was
ever heard about
basically,
this.
so we tried to start it, dude, and it's so funny. Like we got to the point where we were pitching. Like we actually had a couple investors that were interested in
Oh,
putting seed money into the business.
whoa.
And so what it was at a very simplistic level is that a corporation basically sponsored gifted students. So they
Okay.
would pay for their schooling, and in exchange, the student, it's almost like, imagine like an athlete. It's just an exchange. So they pay for your schooling, they put you up, all that stuff, and then you have a commitment to them once you graduate.
So you'd go
So it
like
was getting
you'd have to go work for them for a couple years or whatever.
exactly,
Got it.
exactly. And
Okay.
so it was just kind of
That's
this
probably like
modern
it's
way that,
kind of like ROTC or like
yeah,
it's kind
yeah,
of like that kind of process, right?
exactly, 100%. And I actually think Greg might have done that. I can't remember for sure, but um, regardless, we got to the end of the school year, and we're getting all these interested investors, and we like real world hit us. We're like, are we going to do this? Or are we going to take, like, because at this point I've got an offer from Cisco,
Oh,
Greg's got
right.
his offer, Carter's, is interested in pursuing acting in California, and Stu obviously had another year, so he was still interested. And we just folded it up, dude, and that was it. And I've never looked back. I never had any regrets. I think it's the right thing to do. My heart wasn't in it. But right after I graduated, I moved to North Carolina. I'm in corporate. I'm trying to figure out what's my next thing. I thought I was going to start a grinder business,
Oh,
like for cannabis,
yeah.
like an
Okay.
automatic grinder, like, because this is
Oh, like a
something, and I
physical
talk about
product. Okay.
like a physical product. And I
Yeah.
talk about this very openly. I smoked a ton of pot when I was in college.
Okay.
And I talk about that with the college students because I was self-medicating and I didn't really realize it.
Got it. Okay.
Um, but at the time, I was like, I saw this wave. I was like, oh, cannabis is going to be like, states are going to start legalizing it, and eventually it's going to be legal at the federal level. Let me like see if there's some way that I can get involved in it. And I would have completely missed the mark on that one too, because it was like vape pens and all these other new ways to consume it came
Yeah.
out.
Right.
So it wouldn't have worked. So getting to Great Minds is like, there were all these things that I tried that didn't work. And so the next thing was Great Minds. I was devouring personal development books when I got down to Raleigh, North Carolina. It was like my mind was blown. There was like this whole new realm of like self-improvement that I didn't
Yeah.
even know was possible.
Okay.
And so I'm just tearing through books. Tony Robbins was a guy that I was just consuming his content. Eric the Hip Hop Preacher, Gary V, Brennan Bouchard, like even this guy named Peter Voog, who I now is just like feel
Not
like
someone.
that he's not
Not.
someone I'm very interested in aligning
Okay.
with.
Okay.
But I was just devouring this content, and Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Robert
Yeah. I'm actually it's on my
Kiyosaki.
list. I haven't read it yet, but it's one of the ones I want to read this year. I haven't read it
It's a
yet.
good read.
Okay.
It is. It's been foundational. It's really changed it. It really kind of solidified why I wanted to go into business for myself. But so I started this company called Great Minds because a buddy of mine connected me with Christian.
Okay.
Christian Williams was my business partner for Great Minds, and we sat down over a lunch, and all we did for like 2 hours was talk about personal development. And at the end of the lunch, I just asked him, I was like, "Do you want to go into business together? Start a personal development company?" And that was pretty much it, man. And that Great Minds story parallels my mental health story.
Yeah.
But you know, it's funny looking back on it. We had no clients, we had no target market, we had no like MVP, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like our most viable like we didn't have any of that. It was
You just
pure
kind of,
passion.
yeah, I was gonna say it felt like when you guys were getting started, it reminded me what I was working on at the time. It just felt like not a clear direction on what you were selling, just passion.
No. I remember afterwards I was on the phone with one of my buddies, like after we'd kind of folded things up, and he was like, "Yeah, man, like I always supported you. I just didn't know what you did." And
Yeah, right, 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 right,
I was
right.
like, honestly, now that you say that, I don't really know if I knew what we did.
That's
I just knew I
funny.
liked to publicly speak and I loved
Yeah,
personal development. And it was
sure.
cool. We actually did a 3-part workshop with the early and career folks at Cisco. So we like did get our feet wet in the market. We just, you know, it just didn't inevitably it didn't go anywhere. So
Sure, sure. Okay, got it.
yeah.
Because the goal of that was, I mean, you guys were putting out a lot of content online. I remember I followed you guys on Instagram and YouTube, I think.
Hmm.
So yeah. So did that give you any public speaking at that point? Was that, I mean, you said a little bit with Cisco.
Yeah, a little bit with Cisco. And what I was doing, it's funny, man. It's like Steve Jobs always says you can only connect the dots looking back. So you just have to
Sure.
believe in something, call it intuition, and he goes on and on and on. But for me, when you look back connecting the dots, when I got down to Raleigh, North Carolina, one thing that happened right off the bat is I told you I was immediately surrounded by a lot of young, talented kids. I mean, they were young adults, right?
Yeah.
And one kid who actually was from Indiana went to IU. His name was James George.
Okay.
Um, we still stay in contact to this day because he came to me and he goes, we had to do like a little presentation one day for our training program. And he sat in it. He saw me do my presentation.
Okay.
And what he didn't know is that when I was an intern at Cisco as a junior in college, my mentor that I basically shadowed all summer long gave me a book called As You Speak. And he
Hmm.
was like, if you don't learn anything else this summer, I just want to teach you how to publicly speak.
Oh, wow.
It's going to take you the furthest in life. And so I read that book. Every single week I had to give him a speech. I actually ended up winning this like innovation contest for the
Nice.
interns.
Yeah.
And I had to
Okay.
give a speech, dude, in front of like 400 kids. And it just came so natural to me. Like I was just, it was like kind of natural talent meets like I'm actually starting to refine this craft. And so
Sure.
when I got down to Raleigh, those skills came out in a presentation. And James was like, dude, you need to come to this thing called Toastmasters with me.
Love it.
And I'm like, what is Toastmasters?
It's a
Like,
funny
is
name
this where
too,
you,
right?
yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
is this where you learn? I literally said like sarcastic too, like, is this where you learn how to give toasts? And he, and he was like, no, man, like it's where you learn how to like refine your speaking. And like, I saw you give your presentation, you seem semi decent, like you should refine your skills. So I went with him and there was this thing called table topics. And when you went, there the meetings were structured in a certain way. So there was kind of like these organized set of speeches, like 2 or 3 people would go,
Okay.
and then they would have this table topics where people could either volunteer or randomly get selected to stand up and give like a 2-minute ad hoc off the top speech.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
it's designed to just get you comfortable speaking in front of people. Well, I got selected. And so I went up, I gave an ad hoc 2-minute speech. And at the end of the meetings, they pick winners. Like out of the 3 people who gave a structured speech, like this is the person who did the best. Out of the 3 or 4 people that did table topics, here's the person that did the best.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
And I won all the votes.
Whoa. Your first time doing
So
it?
I won my first time doing it, I won all the votes. And after that, dude, I was hooked. So I was giving speeches like every other week at Toastmasters, starting to refine and build these skills at the same time that I met Christian, at the same time I was reading personal development, at the same time that I was beginning to experience the onset of symptoms for my brain disorder. So it's just this culmination of
Got
all
it.
of these factors that were
Right.
taking place at the same time that's gotten me to where I am now. But um, that was we didn't have any clients, but I was speaking very regularly, even when Christian and I were founding Great Minds, because I was just speaking at Toastmasters. I was competing in local speaking competitions and doing like random emceeing events and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Got it. No, that makes sense. That's really cool. It's cool how
Yeah.
you've like, you kind of got a taste of it, and you've like, I feel like that happens to everybody who's pursuing multiple things and you're like trying out everything. But it's cool when you hear a story about someone who they went to go to a Toastmasters evening, and then you just like found the itch. You're like, shit, this is what I want to do. This is like what I'm good at. This is it. Right. It's funny. Like you had to go through college, working at Cisco to like meet someone who introduced you to that.
100%, dude. And that's why it's like I always say, and ET, I got this from ET, but it's like, don't rush the process, trust the process.
Right.
And it takes 29 years to be 29 years old. I know that we just had our
Yeah,
29th
that's right. Yeah.
birthdays. And like things just unfold in mysterious ways. And I'll be the first to tell you, for people that are listening in right now, like my story is still being written. Um,
100%.
I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. And it's great to be able to speak for a living and have this book out. But like my story is still being written, you know, like
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
have all the answers. I'm still experimenting every day. But I think for me, that is the excitement and the beauty in life is like, I don't want to have this consistent pattern. Like I
Yeah,
want to be experimenting and
yeah.
have so many interests. My fiance the other day was like, "You're just like interested in so much shit." And I'm like, "I can't help it. Like
I get that
I
all the
pick up
time
this
too.
book." Yeah. And I don't want to not be that way. I
Yeah.
just don't know any other way to live, man. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah, yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. 100%. No, I totally get it. It's funny too. I think this is I mean, on this podcast, I've noticed just talking to so many people, one of the things that's been the same across the board is you until you talk to somebody and have a conversation, you really don't realize that it just seems like the vast majority of people that are finding success or happy with what they're doing, they don't know everything. If all of them are saying like, I don't, I'm just trying shit and I'm figuring it out. And it's been
Absolutely.
really cool to hear that across the board from, someone like you who's now written a book and you're an author and you're doing your own thing with speaking, to athletes I've had on here, to like founders, like it's all the same. People are like, they're just trying stuff and they don't give up. And it's the persistency that seems to unlock a lot of this stuff. It's like trying different things and working hard and figuring things out. That's how you get better at anything.
100%. And I think anybody who's acting like they have it all figured out is, and I don't mean any disrespect, but this is just a little thought to maybe plant in some listener's head who's really resistant to feedback or, um, the idea that maybe they don't know everything, is like, maybe there's an underlying insecurity there. And I know that, I speak from experience. I was uncoachable in
Okay.
sports,
Right.
uncoachable. So I plateaued. I plateaued at basketball, man. There for a long time, I was one of the better players on the court. I was uncoachable. I couldn't take feedback. And what was the underlying reason that I came to discover as I got older is that I was insecure.
Got
I
it.
didn't want to fail. I didn't want to make any mistakes, because to me, that meant that I wasn't good, versus let me make these mistakes. Let me fail forward. And along the way, if I'm open to it and I'm resilient, I can learn something and then I can develop. So just
Right.
having a love for the craft, whatever you're doing, and opening yourself up to the realization that why would you even want to know everything? That's
Yeah.
boring.
Right. Right. True.
Think
Then
about
you're
once you
like,
figured this. Yeah.
then you like your whole path of the attempt of learning new things would be over if you knew it all. Right.
Well, dude, I mean, think about it. The moment you figure something out, like at least for me, it's like, okay, I've got that down and I need to now find something new to like entertain myself.
Yeah. Oh,
And that's
100%.
just through learning.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I'm the same way. No, that's so interesting. The one other thing I was curious, I think I personally, maybe it's not, but I feel like it's something that is a dot. If you look back in your story, when I think about, just talking to you over the years, is what finally convinced you to want to move to California? Because I feel like that might have been a pivotal point too for you. Is it seemed like a lot of things started like spinning in a positive direction once you moved out west?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, it's so funny because it's the breadcrumbs. So it started with a family vacation out west when I was 14 years old. We didn't even come down to SoCal. We
Oh,
were in
okay.
NorCal. My dad's brother, so my uncle, lived in the Bay Area, and we went out there to visit family and do some hiking in some of the national parks out here. And when we landed in California, I just remember thinking, is this like this is an option? Like,
Yeah.
this is how some people live.
Especially when you're
Like,
from Indiana. You're like, wait,
exactly.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, wait a minute. I don't have to slug through 6 months of winter and there's mountains and blah, blah, all this. And I was just back in Indy, giving a speech, and it was fall and the leaves had
Yeah.
changed, and you don't get that here in SoCal,
No.
man. Like,
Yeah.
there are some beautiful, beautiful things about Indiana. You get space, you have a yard, you get to really know your neighbors. Like,
Yeah.
there's some pros and cons. Like,
Sure.
so I never want to disrespect my home state. I love Indiana. But that was the first breadcrumb. Then when I was a sophomore in high school, I had just gotten my driver's permit, and we were allowed to drive to school, but sophomores had to park in the back lot, which was probably a 300-yard walk from the parking lot to the door to get into the high school.
Okay.
And it was February. It was like 10 degrees. The wind chill made it 0. It was 7:30 in the morning and completely pitch black.
Oh yeah.
Like, as if it was the dead of night. And I just remembered walking in from the parking lot, wind cutting through my jacket, chilling me to my bones. And I just said, when I'm old enough to make my own decision, I'm effing out of here, man.
I hear
I'm
that.
out of here.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was it for me. That decision was made. And then the breadcrumbs aligned. I had an internship with Cisco when I was a junior in college. That took me back out to California, fell in love all over again. Moved down to North Carolina to start the job, met my now fiance, who also had her own dream, her own independent dream of going out to California.
Oh, cool.
And that was it, man. We took a trip out here. We walked. It's like really like funny. It's like it's very cliche. Like, we
Yeah.
actually took like a walk on the beach hand in
Oh,
hand
that's hilarious.
and decided that this is what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But
No, that's
again,
cool though.
not really planned. It wasn't
Yeah.
like organized. It was just like we happened to be on the beach that day with some friends. We took a walk, and yeah, that was it.
That's
So
wild,
then
man.
every action after that was an informed action based on the decision that we really wanted to come out here.
Gotcha. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's funny. I always think that too. I always tell my wife, I was born in California, actually. I was born just
Oh,
north
no
of Santa
kidding.
Barbara. Yeah. My mom's from
Oh,
Santa Barbara
beautiful
area.
area.
Yeah. Good spot.
Beautiful area.
My dad moved out there right after college, and then they ended up meeting, had me, and then we moved. My dad got a job in northern Indiana. So it was like the
No
opposite. It
kidding.
was like my mom spent her whole life in California to then moving to freezing cold, middle of nowhere Indiana. And
Where
so
in Indiana was it?
we lived in
In
Kokomo.
Northwest? Kokomo? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah. Isn't
Kokomo,
that funny?
Indiana? That's
Yeah. But can you
hilarious. I got
imagine
a
moving
really
from
good friend
Santa
from there.
Barbara to Kokomo? And they moved in the winter. So
Oh no.
so for my
How was that
mom,
for your mom?
oh, horrible. I mean, she talks about how like right when they moved, major blizzard, like bawling her eyes out just because like what have I done type of thing.
That
But it's
breaks my
funny how
heart,
it's
man.
like the other way, because I always grew up the same way. I was always like, I would love to be out in California. It's funny now because my wife's from Chicago, so we're like in a colder place. Now I'm in Chicago. It's freezing, but
Yeah.
it's funny
Yeah.
how things take you in certain
Fun city
directions.
though.
Fun city though, yeah. I mean, COVID's kind of put a damper on a lot of things because we can't do much, but in general, yeah, it's a great city.
Man, summertime shy, nothing quite like it.
I know, right? I know. The saying is true. It really is a great city, especially in the summer when it's warm. Um, but yeah, so I think it's interesting. You go to California, and then my curiosity then goes to, and for the listeners, I think, to jump into what you're doing now. What has kind of been, how long have you been in California now? Has it been what, 2 years?
3 years
Three
now,
years. Oh
believe it or
wow.
not. Just
Okay.
hit the 3. Yeah, just hit the 3-year mark.
Gotcha. Okay. So can you give
Yeah.
everyone a little understanding of, 3 years of being in California, what kind of has happened and what has finally kind of transitioned you out of the corporate world, starting your own business, writing a book, and really getting into the mental health space?
Yeah. Well, so the funny thing about the transition out here is like, so I did long distance with my now fiance for 2.5 years.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
She,
Yeah.
yeah. So she's from Long Island, New York. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina. So her and I were either hoofing it up to New York. I freaking love New York.
Yeah.
We fell in love in that city, man. So we go back there every year. It's a blast. We got engaged in Central Park. Just a huge fan. Or she was coming down to me, or we were traveling all over, just kind of being young, young 20 somethings with a little bit
Sure.
of coin in our pocket, having a good time. But when we first moved out to California, we were staying at one of my buddies' parents' house, and always want to respect house rules and everything. And they're very religious. And so
Okay.
for the first 2 weeks, her and I were staying in separate beds at the house, and it was just like so funny because we
Oh,
were
that's
like, we
funny.
still we still feel long distance,
You still
like
had to like go
so.
down the hall and connect, or, you know what I mean?
We
Yeah.
did. We did, and it was so funny. And even like when we came to the apartment, it took forever to get like all of our furniture and stuff. So like we were sleeping on the floor,
Oh,
and I was
whoa.
like showing up to Cisco meetings like half tired. Like I think the second day I was out here, like my boss's boss was like, "You have to do this thing called a QBR, which is like a quarterly business review." And I knew nothing about the business at the time, and just got grilled for an hour. And dude, it was just trial
Rough
by
start.
fire, you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
rough start. You just kind of throw yourself out there. But yeah, the question was kind of how did I get into the mental health advocacy and what I'm doing now
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
of situation.
Yeah. I would love to just
So
know. Yeah. Cause it seems like the last 3 years have been pretty pivotal for you as far as like you moved to California with the Cisco job, but you've been building and working on all this other stuff that's now cultivated into, you running your own business.
yes. So let me take it a step back, give the story of the journey that I went through, then I'll
Yeah.
talk about
Perfect.
how it's gotten to the point where it is now.
Love it.
So in late 2015, I started to experience these symptoms that I'd never felt before. And all of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, I'm waking up with what feels like a drum line in my chest.
Oh,
And I always, when I talk to the college kids, I describe it as like Wolf of Wall Street, Matthew
yeah.
McConaughey.
Okay. Yeah.
So you get it, iconic scene. But that was my heart. It was just beating through my chest every single morning when I woke up. I had sweaty palms,
Oh, wow.
my mouth was dry, and my mind was racing. And the way that I would describe like the racing thoughts was, have you seen that video on Instagram with the kid who's canoeing and he runs up to this beehive and smacks the
Yes. Yes.
he just gets so warm,
Yes. I know
and his
exactly what you're
buddy's
talking
just
about.
his buddy's just sitting like 15 yards back, just like laughing.
Yes.
I was like, if that's not two guys just being guys, I don't know what is. That video gets me every
That's
time. But
hilarious. That's so funny.
that was my brain. And I'm laughing now, but at the time it was absolutely
Your
terrifying
brain was
because I
the
can't,
beehive, and then
the beehive with all the
yeah.
bees just swarming out, just
Got it. Okay.
thoughts racing in a million different directions. And I couldn't get a clear train of thought, and I couldn't slow my mind down. And I just knew that I didn't like what I was feeling, and that I didn't know what was going on. I certainly wasn't going to tell anybody about it. I was new in this early in career training program down at Raleigh, North Carolina at Cisco. I just made these new friends, but like they didn't know me that well.
Sure.
And so I was like, I'm just going to shut this thing down. I remember thinking that. I'm like, I'm just going to put the clamps on this, get my brain back to the way that it used to be, and we're just going to move forward from this. And so 2016 was right around the corner. I'm a sucker for New Year's
Oh
resolutions.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I thought to myself, you know what I'm going to do? My only goal for 2016, let's just nip this in the bud. In my mind, my brain was like a light switch.
Got it.
So something had flipped on this side of my brain that I don't know why it was doing what it was doing. And all I had to do was flip it back. And the way I was going to do that is I was going to go to work. I was going to go to the gym. I was going to sit in the steam room and sweat out all of the toxins from 4 years at Purdue and, time spent in this early in career program. And I'm always very transparent. I enjoyed partying in college. I smoked a lot of weed. And so in my mind, it was like, no alcohol for the month of January, no pot. I'm just going to detox. I've
Got it.
just worn my brain out. I remember
Yeah.
that's what I thought. I just worn my brain out. I just need to get it reset.
Got it.
And all I needed was 31 days to do that. And so for 31 days, I executed on that plan. And I did get results. The only challenge is that it wasn't the results that I was looking for. And by the end of the month, not only had the symptoms that I described to you gotten a lot worse,
Oh wow.
that I now know is anxiety,
Yeah.
but a second emotion had crept in and came in really hard by the end of the month. And that was depression. And I don't know if you've felt depression. I know for a fact that you know somebody with
Yeah.
depression, and
Definitely.
statistics alone would point to that. But it is the most crippling emotion I have ever felt, ever. And I always say when I speak that I would never wish it on my worst enemy. Um, it truly is debilitating. It can derail your life. And seemingly overnight, my world was turned upside down. And now it's the hardest thing in the world to just get out of bed. And I went
Wow.
from this happy-go-lucky guy to now this severely anxious, deeply depressed. Like, it feels like I have bricks attached to my feet. It feels like the world has been washed over, almost like an Instagram filter, washed over in gray. The things that I used to enjoy are completely unenjoyable, and all happiness and joy has been replaced with hopelessness and deep, deep sadness.
Wow. Yeah. That's so wild that it seems like it hit you. I mean, it must have been a build, but it seemed like there was like a really short amount of time where all of a sudden it was really obvious in your life too.
Well, what's funny is that actually what kickstarted it was the sobriety.
Ah,
I'd been self-medicating and didn't realize it for
yeah.
so long that there was this undercurrent of emotions that I had and that I was dealing with, and just didn't recognize it and
Got
didn't
it.
know.
Yeah.
So when I sobered up, it was like, woof, all these emotions, just all these symptoms just flooded into my consciousness, and it literally felt like I'd been hit by a semi truck.
Wow.
Um, and if we go over a couple minutes, it's fine.
Okay.
I know we had talked about
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah. I'm
because
keeping
I'm
an eye
having
on it
fun. I
for you.
also know you have a call, so
Yeah.
we'll be conscious of time. But I just out of nowhere, it felt like, to your point, it had been building, but I didn't realize it. I wasn't
Got it.
cognizant of it. And once it came into my consciousness, it was there to stay. And of course, I
Okay.
didn't realize that at the time. I still was clinging on to this belief system that I could reverse everything that had happened, that I could get back my old brain, my normal brain,
Right.
which is very stigmatizing. And so for the next couple of months, I just went into full blown panic mode, and I'm trying everything under the sun just to again flip that switch, flip
Yeah.
that switch. That's
Right.
what I'm thinking about every day. And during this time period, I'm doing two things really, really well. The first of which is I'm hiding from the outside world what I'm going through. So whether you're a work colleague, a friend, or a family member, you don't know what's transpiring in my brain. And every single day, I'm going toe to toe with my brain while I'm trying to sit, and you're part of the corporate world, so you get it. While you're trying to sit in a corporate meeting, act professional, pay attention, like
Right.
care.
Yeah.
I'm and at the peak of my symptoms, I was having thoughts of suicide from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to bed.
Man.
So this was you and I sitting here chopping it up like how we are now. But all the while, I've got this dialogue. I've got two trains of thought. I've got what we're talking about, and then what my brain is feeding me. And
Wow.
at that time, my brain was so loud. It was so loud in my head, telling me to kill myself, telling me that I was depressed, telling me that I was severely anxious. And I just didn't know how to quiet it or what to do. And everything came to a head one night where I basically thought that suicide was my only viable option. I had an absolute breakdown where I curled into the fetal position on the ground in my apartment and just bawled
Wow.
because I started thinking about 5, 10, 15, 20 years old, what my life was going to look like. And if it was going to feel even like a tenth of what I felt at that time, I just wasn't down for it. It wasn't on my roadmap for life. And
Yeah.
the emotions are so intense and so painful. It's if you haven't felt them, it's almost hard to fathom just how painful they are. But it's just this constant, just think about the saddest time you've ever been in your life. Turn up the volume knob on that times 10, and then just roll the reel for 2, 3, 4, 5 months.
Wow. Holy smokes, man. That's deep. It's
Yeah,
tough.
it's so tough, and I'd always been judgmental of people who said that they were depressed. I'm like, what do you have to be depressed about? Like, life
Sure,
is
I've heard
great.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Until I felt it. And I realized, in that moment that I needed to do something. And so in desperation, I called my parents and I told them, I'm severely anxious. I'm deeply depressed. I'm suicidal. I have no idea why this is happening, why my
Yeah.
brain has turned on me. And at that time, I was always telling people, my brain's betrayed me. My brain's betrayed me. But they didn't have like any groundbreaking advice outside of, look, we don't know what's going on with you, but we just know that you need assistance, and
Sure.
this is
Oh yeah.
outside of our scope. But even just that little bit of permission to say, go get help, is what I needed. Because I was so resistant to that. And so the very next day, I scheduled my first appointment with a therapist. And although she wasn't the person that I ended with, I eventually was mapped up with a therapist that knew what was going on with me. And in late 2016, I was diagnosed with a chronic brain disorder known as obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, where the
Got it.
core symptoms are severe anxiety, deep depression, and thoughts of suicide.
Wow.
And so I immediately started talk therapy that's specific to OCD, which is ERP, or exposure and response prevention. And over the course of the next couple of years, between the therapy and lifestyle changes, again, kind of teaching myself along the way what feels good for my brain, what doesn't, mindset shifts, I started to get my life back on track. And through that process, I just promised myself that I would never let somebody else suffer in silence again. Because even after the diagnosis, man, I was just so ashamed still. And there was like this whole part of me that was siloed off,
Okay.
that I just felt like, okay, I have to deal with this in secrecy, but I don't want you to know. I just
Yeah.
want you to know me as Zach, like the guy that you knew back in college. And after a certain point, it just didn't sit right with me. And I was like, I have to get out and start speaking about this. But I didn't know let me take it a step back. I knew that I wanted to help, actually, but I
Okay.
didn't know what that was going to look like. In fact, I actually didn't even think I was going to go into advocacy. So fast forward to,
And if I might jump in, I think the one interesting thing to hear you talk about this, I
yeah,
mean, number one, thanks for telling me the story. I mean, that's a really deep and I'm sure tough thing it's been to like get it out and talk about. Two, though, I
yeah.
think to me, it's very admirable that while you're going through trying to figure yourself out, the first thing that came to your mind was you want to help other people with it. I mean, I just wanted to say, I think that's pretty cool.
Well, and it's funny because I think sometimes it's like a lifeline. I needed, reflecting on it at the time, I needed something to believe in. I needed
Got it.
something to hold on to. And when you are in that, because just because I got diagnosed and started therapy doesn't mean that the depression and the suicidal thoughts went away. That
Right.
lasted for another year.
I'm
But
sure. Yeah, man.
it was holding on to a couple relationships, my fiance, my parents, a couple of my best friends, and then just the belief that I could do something about this later was what pushed me through more dark days than I can even begin to explain.
I bet. Yeah, man.
But what's funny is, again, you can only connect the dots looking back. I didn't think I was going to speak about this when I moved out here. I knew I wanted to help people. And I knew that I wanted to specifically help people in the mental health space, but I thought it was going to be like one-on-one talks and stuff like that.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
because when we moved out to California, Kate and I, my fiance, I still was with great minds.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
Christian and I were trying to move HQ out to California and start to build the business from here. And I moved out here in late 2017, so November 2017. And through a series of events in his personal life, things just fell through with the business. He got hit with some major life events and just came to me and said, dude, I need to take a step away from this. Like, I need a break. We can revisit it at some point if it makes sense, but I just need this for me.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do after what I've been through? Am I going to now be hard on this guy because he
Sure.
needs a break? No.
No.
So we folded up the business, and I was then in this period of like, what's next for me? And for a few months in 2018, I didn't know what that looked like. And I had a guy come into my life named Mike Ialon. We're no longer business partners now, but I have nothing but love for the guy because he's the one who came to me and said, through many, many conversations, unpacking layers of me, discovered, because I initially came to him and said, I want to publicly speak. And
Okay.
he's like,
Yeah.
well, what's your topic? And I'm like, leadership, personal development, like all these things that I had been doing in Raleigh. And through many, many conversations, he unpacked that I had suffered from depression and anxiety and lived with the brain disorder. And he stopped me mid sentence and was like, "That's it.
Ah, got it.
That's it. That's your story." And I was like, "Ooh, I don't know if I want to tell this story out loud to everybody." I was kind of down to help people in, excuse me, in private, but I don't
Sure.
know about
This is like public speaking, getting this all out in the open, right?
and he was like, "Look, if you want to do this for real, this is what people need to hear. This is a topic that people, especially males, aren't speaking enough about. And if you want to make a difference, this is your chance." And I told him, I was like, let me think about it. This is a big decision for me.
Right.
And so I took probably, 2 weeks, maybe 3, and I thought about it.
Okay.
And at the end of the time, I just said, "You know what, man? You were saying the entire time that you were going through these symptoms that as soon as you got well, you would help somebody else. This is life opening that door for you, and you've got a choice. You can either step through it, or and I would have always found a way, and I'm still always trying to find more and more ways to help people,
Sure.
which is why I wrote the book, and there's other aspirations that I have. But I said, you know what? Forget the fear. Walk through this door. I know it's terrifying, but get out there and start sharing your story. And so in 2018, I gave my first speech
Love it.
at University of Laverne down the road here in Southern California. It was a free speech. I just showed up, gave it, and the program was well received. And I was like, I think I've got something here. And so since 2018, I've just been building on that momentum, building out the program. I became mental health first aid certified, and then obviously, wrote this
Love
book,
it. There it
wrote and
is.
published this
Yeah.
book. Yeah.
Fantastic, man. That's so exciting. I mean, like, I
Yeah.
know it's a really tough story and you went through something, but I think to me and for anyone listening, I think it's really powerful to hear how you've turned a major pivotal difficult time in your life into potentially something that's going to be, your like life's mission, or at least one of the chapters in your life of something you're really giving back and doing and turning into a career. I think it's really wild.
Mental health will always be a part of my journey, man, because it's always with me.
Yeah.
And I think I realized when I wanted to escape my brain, I realized that your brain is always with you, man. Wherever you go, that thing is with you. So
Right.
taking care of it is so important. And I just happen to have a brain that needs a little more hands-on attention.
Sure.
So I meditate on a daily basis. I protect my sleep. I don't smoke anymore. I really try to minimize the amount that I drink. I work out frequently. Like, I just do all the things I need to manage my brain.
Yeah. Right. No, it sounds like you're doing all the right things. What do you use? We've talked about this before. Do you still use Headspace? Excuse me, for meditating?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I do. I use Headspace, and for me, the big thing I'll say for anybody listening is meditation is exercise for your brain. And you can be Christian, you can be Muslim, you can be whatever religion you want and still meditate. You're not betraying your religion. And I
Right.
always like to say that, because there's a lot of Christians who say, well, I pray, that's my meditation. And that's great. Prayer is a great thing. Whatever it is, connect to a higher power, whatever it is that makes you happy. But understand that meditation is a science.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, you get replicatable results every single time through the act of meditation, the same way that physical fitness is a science.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a
Yeah.
religion.
Yeah.
You get replicatable results through taking various actions. And
Right.
fortunately for meditation, it's really, really simple. People want to overcomplicate meditation, but it is so simple, man. It is just the act of sitting and attempting. Notice how I say attempt, not actually doing, but attempting to focus on your breath. And
Yeah.
what studies have shown is that you only need 10 minutes of guided meditation to reap those benefits. So, um, you know, and you don't even need to be the guy or gal that knows anything about meditation.
Right. Right.
It's show up as the student. And that's what I do with Headspace. Andy Pudakambe walks me through a daily meditation. I meditated this morning, and then got my exercise in before this. And it's just, meditated over 18,000 minutes. And it's just the thing that
Damn.
I know
Wow.
in my heart of hearts has
Oh
changed my
man.
life.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's funny. I wanted to look up real quick at mine because I had a buddy. You've talked about it before, but I have a friend that we talk business a lot, and we kind of share tools and tricks. He got me into
Yeah.
meditating probably in like June or July of this year, and I've
Yep.
tried it so many times, but I just never could find something that worked. But the last really actually it's only been like 4 months. The last 4 months I've been consistently meditating, and I'll be honest, it's not.
Yeah.
I try to do it 7 days a week, but it's probably more like five.
That's
Um,
okay. It's
whenever
probably the
I
same for me.
yeah, whenever I get like in a streak of it though, I mean, like I always use the analogy of I feel like it creates this healthy pause between shit flying at me and the way I respond to things in life. No matter if it's family, work, whatever it is, that's what meditating does for me. It creates this healthy gap between the reacting that I normally would do.
I literally love that. I feel like I don't even have to say anything more about meditation because that's what it's good for. It
Yeah.
it literally creates that gap between you and the response to whatever is taking place in your life. And before I started meditating, I was so reactive.
Yeah.
I just reacted to everything that was coming at me in my life. And once I started meditating, I started to be able to respond to things in life.
Love that. Yep.
And to anybody who's looking to meditate, maybe you don't have anxiety or depression because meditation will help you reduce those symptoms over time. The same way that physical fitness over time will build stronger muscles and also help manage emotion. But meditation is also good for simple stress relief.
Right.
Meditation is good for focus. You can drink a cup of coffee and get a little bit of artificial energy, but there's nothing that focuses me up better than meditating. And
Yeah.
that's why I meditate every morning. And I feel the difference in how I go about my day on days when I don't meditate in the morning and I wait until the afternoon. Like it almost kind of makes
100%.
me cringe just
Yeah,
thinking about
well,
it.
I didn't get it in this morning before getting on here, and I need to do it this afternoon. I feel the same way. It's like almost it's something in your morning that's just like off. You know what I mean?
It is.
It's weird. It is a weird reset button.
It really is, man. And again, it's the science behind it. So there's different types of brain waves that we have, but at a very simplistic level, when we are doing cognitive tasks and really using our brain power, our brain waves are really small, short, and choppy.
Okay.
And what meditation does is smooths them out and makes them more. When you measure the brain waves, what it measures and registers as is these slow rolling curves that
Mm.
become your thoughts. And
Whoa.
so all we're doing is changing the brainwave. That's it. When it's really choppy like that and your brain's really racy and all over the place,
Yeah.
your brain's going like this. But meditation just takes it and smooths it out so that
Whoa.
you can slow
Makes
things
sense.
down and respond versus react.
Got it. Oh, that makes so much sense. I never thought of it
Yeah.
like that or knew that. Very cool.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
I know we're running out of time, and it was funny. I had like a bunch of ideas of like financial things, but we could always do another episode. This has been phenomenal. So I love the content, what we've talked about. I had just two quick last questions that I always
Please
like.
do. I'm having fun, man.
Yeah,
I
I
can
know
I
this is
can
good. We
jump
could
on my call here in a minute. I'm
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
worried about it.
Okay, so let's do this. The last couple questions I always ask at the end, all of my guests, very similar questions. The first one, hopefully,
Yeah.
is an obvious one for you, but I just want to ask what your favorite book is. Obviously, it's "You're Not Alone" by Zach Westerbeck.
Yeah.
But if besides that one, is there one? And I'll make sure there's links to all that to Amazon and everything in the show notes, and we'll share that out. And then, is there another book though that's like been impactful in your life that you've gifted a lot or talk about openly?
Yeah, and I just messaged my phone call. I'm like, I need a couple minutes. I'm having a good time right now. Dude, those are
I'm
the
gonna do the same
requirements
thing.
too. When I
Okay.
went into business, I was like, and I have to remind myself of this on a daily basis, because sometimes you can take yourself a little too seriously. Like,
Right.
I got into it, like, I left corporate to have fun with this business. So,
Okay.
like, I'm having a really good time right
Yeah, yeah,
now,
yeah.
and that's what it is, and I'm
Love it.
embracing that.
Right,
So,
right.
do I have any favorite books outside of You're Not Alone? Absolutely, I do. And I read this book every year, and it's actually, I'm really excited for this January because last January was the first time that my fiance and I did this. I do it every year, but now
Okay.
she's a part of it, is reading The Alchemist. Have you read that book?
No, I haven't yet. No, I'm
So
gonna
The
write it down
Alchemist,
though.
yeah, you should. It's, dude. And I mean, look, it's not going to give you like tactical step-by-step path to building wealth, or, how to stand up a speaking business or whatever, and those types of books have a place too in life. But this one is more about stepping into your purpose and seeing in the book what they call omens, but
Okay.
the breadcrumbs. It's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Seeing the doors in your life opening and understanding that life is a journey, and when you're on your path, it's not linear. It's going to take a lot of different turns and twists, and it's just this fun story of this young kid who goes on what you call your personal legend,
Okay.
which is basically pursuing his truth, his passion, and just the lessons and things that he learns along the way. So it's a way to ground myself every year, and just get connected with that spirit.
Love it. Okay. Fantastic. That one
Yeah.
actually hasn't been recommended on here yet. So that's a new one for the podcast. So I'm pumped.
It's my absolute favorite book. In fact, I was
Okay.
just on the phone yesterday or the day before with one of my best friends, and when I recommended the book to him, he had it in his hand, and
Oh,
he
that's
was like, "I'm
funny.
actually about to start reading this."
That's so
And I'm
funny.
like, "You've made a great decision, my friend."
Yeah. I'll have to add it to the
Yeah,
bookshelf. I have a bunch that I'm trying to finish for the end of the year. So that'll have to be one for sure.
you
Um,
should, man. It's a great book.
Yeah, no, I will definitely add it and I'll share it out here. And then the last like question, I wanted to ask you this because I know you've personally done a lot of this just from knowing you. What do you do, and what tools do you use to like track and monitor your like yearly goals, your daily tasks? Like, I think it's just really interesting. I know you've tried a lot of things and just through your career path. What are like,
Yeah.
is it, pen and paper? Is there apps you use? Are there like certain things you like to do to like plan goals and handle like daily tasks?
Yeah, so I journal, man, and I used to set, and I do have like metrics and stuff that I track on an Excel sheet, but really what I've found helps me the most in manifesting what I want in life is just journaling a little bit every day, and
Okay.
just putting down my thoughts and my dreams, my goals, my aspirations, and just kind of staying close to them that way. So it's really not this formal process. Like, if you read my journal right now, it's all over the place, but if you aggregate it, like I went through and read like from earlier this year, like January, February, what you see is that what I was talking about in January, February has now manifested itself
Ah,
9, 10 months later. And so
interesting.
it's just staying close to that manifestation. And as it's manifesting, it changes. And that's what's funny is like, because once one thing's been manifested, it's like, okay, well, this is the next step in that. And so that's how I stay close to my vision. And I throw out a big broad vision, and then like I said, I've got an Excel sheet with like numbers and metrics and stuff like that. But candidly, dude, I don't like to stay too close to the numbers that way.
Okay.
And what I found is that when I stay close to my vision, I land around the numbers. Like, the goal that I had for the first half this year is roughly where I landed,
Got it. Okay.
in terms of revenue goal for the speaking business. It wasn't perfect, but it was near where I wanted to land, which is good enough for me. I'm
Yeah.
happy with that, and
Got
just
it.
continuing to build on that. So journaling is the big thing that I do.
So it sounds like you don't get too bogged down with, being like married to major yearly goals or even like trying to get married to like what a perfect week looks like. It's like trying to just continuously maneuver the direction you're heading in, sort of thing.
Yeah, and like I definitely want some structure in my day, but I like to keep things light, man. I think people that get really, really married to a goal, sometimes what I've seen, and I've studied this with like Olympic athletes, like Michael Phelps has talked about this. You have this big goal, right? And then you go and achieve it and on the other end of that goal is a cliff that you
Uh,
drop off of, and you kind of fall into this depression because it's like, okay, what now? And
yeah.
so for me, I'm really into sustainability. So what can I do for the long term? What can I build and grow and manifest over the long term? We live in a country, especially in corporate America. And by the way, I think capitalism is a great thing and it has its place. But we live in this quarterly system. I got
Hmm.
so conditioned to live by the quarter, the month, the week,
Hitting
and
the
driving to
numbers.
these numbers
Yeah.
to report to Wall Street. And that's just not life, man. Life is much different than that. And it is great to have goals, and it's great to hit those metrics, but life keeps going on after that. Like, I
Yeah.
hit my plan consistently every single year while I was at Cisco, and we would hit the number, we'd have 2 weeks off, and then we'd just start the process again as if,
Yep.
nothing had
And it
happened. And
never
I think I
ends.
learned, and it never ended. And it was
Yeah.
always like mission critical, and it was always the end of the world when we were behind the number. And when I got into this business, I was like, I don't want to operate my life like that. It
Love it.
wasn't fun for me.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. No. That's good. I think honestly, that's something that's been funny for me. I've started to really, I use like this thing called a full focus planner, and I've tried like time blocking on my calendar. Part of it for me right now is like, I have a full-time job and I'm trying to do this. And so it's like,
Right.
I have to fit things in the morning or the evening. So I have to be a little more diligent of like when I do things or just things don't get done. But, I think it's easy to also to like over-engineer things, to your point, and then it's stressful. And that's also not necessarily the best thing either,
Well, dude, and that's a great example because all right, when I was still at Cisco and I was writing the book, like, I either had to get it done in the morning or in the evening.
Yeah.
And I did have a metric, but the metric, in my opinion, was digestible. It was
Yeah.
250 words a day.
Yeah.
Higher hell water, I'm writing 250 words. If I put 2,000 down on paper in a day, fantastic.
Yes.
If I get 250 down, whatever.
Yeah.
And that was the block, though. It was this broad block where it's like, okay, I'm just going to write for an hour before work or after. If I write for more than an hour, great. If I write for more than an hour after work, that's fine. But I can't put this big, heavy burden on myself that I'm going to write 3 hours in the morning, then do a full 8-hour, 9-hour work day, and then write again in the evening. And I'm going to hammer this out. It wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
It wasn't sustainable.
I mean, that, to be honest, I've talked about it on this podcast before. I call it the first time I heard it was Seinfeld called it a 1% strategy. So it's like you do 1% of a goal every day. And to me, that's how this podcast, I had a thing like, basically I try to reach out to, what's my goal? It's like reach out to 3 people every day, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so like, but something like that, it's like, I'm not trying to have 100 guests and trying to like, how do you back into that? It's like, I don't know. I do agree. I've noticed like when I do like small daily things for any bigger goal, it does like manifest itself over time because you're putting in the work slowly but surely, and you're like chipping away versus getting stressed about how do you tackle this enormous thing or problem or goal.
Well, dude, and I love that example because like the way that I look at it is like rush hour at a restaurant, right?
Mm.
Or like rush hour at a coffee spot. From 6:30 in the morning until 8:30, a coffee shop is slammed. And then there's a lull, and then there's another slam, and then there's a lull.
Right.
No human being could sustain getting slammed for 9 hours straight with customers and business and being busy and hectic and all of that. And we recognize that, but yet in our own personal lives, we just absolutely slam our schedules with a million different things. And like a buddy of mine was talking to me yesterday about how Russ, he's a hip hop artist, dropped a song every single day for 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's how he got famous. And I was like, you know what, man, that's good for him. And I'm sure that like he's happy that he's now achieved his goal or his success. But to me, dude, that's just not sustainable.
Right.
I'm not going to drop a 60-second motivational video every day for the next 5 years. I'm not.
Yeah.
But what I could do is drop a few a month.
Yeah.
And it's all, again, for me, it's all about the impact. So what are things that I can do for longevity?
Right.
I can give 2, 3, 4 probably on the high end speeches a week. I can write a blog post or 2 a month. I can do just these things that, again, I want sustainability. I want to be able to do something for life. And I don't want to be trying to sprint through life when in reality it's a marathon.
Yeah. Love that. I think we should end on that. That's a good way. That's a perfect culmination of this whole thing. Zach, thank you for coming on. Where can people find you and where can people find the book?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways you can find me. I would say the number one source for people find me right now is Instagram. So it's at Zach_Westerbeck. And
I'll link that.
The link. Yep. And the link to my book is in the bio. You can go in there. The paperback is $16.99. The ebook is 99 cents through the end of the year. And I just did that to make it easy for anybody who just needs an affordable option. to scoop that. You can find me at zachwesterbeck.com, where you can learn more about my programs. The book is there. It'll just route you to Amazon. You can learn about my coaching programs there. And then if you search my name in LinkedIn, Facebook, I'm even, dabbling a little bit with Twitter. You can find me just by searching Zach Westerbeck.
Love it. Love it, man. All right. Well, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you taking the time to come on. This was a great conversation. We can definitely, I feel like, do this again and go into all kinds of avenues. So we'll have to do
Dude,
a
we've got
round
way more
two.
to chat
I
about.
know. We definitely do.
We've
We
got way
definitely
more to
do.
chat about. This was fun. I really
Yeah,
appreciate you bringing me on. So thank you.
100%, man. Well, good luck with the book. I'm excited for you and everything you're doing. And I'll keep keeping an eye out for what's next, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome, buddy. Well, have a good one. Thanks for coming on.
You too.
All right.